Okay, so you send us a ton of stuff about relationships and happiness.
Hmm.
Really interesting stuff. You've been digging deep into how all the different people in our lives, how they actually impact how happy we are overall.
Yeah.
And we've got a lot to unpack here. Looks like the core of all this is this book, Relationships and Happiness.
By Mental Wellness TV.
Right, exactly. And it's such a big topic these days. We're really starting to realize as a society that having good relationships isn't just like a bonus, right?
Not just a cherry on top.
Except
It's fundamental to well-being.
yeah, and I think what you're really trying to figure out is this: like, how do all the relationships we have, from when we're kids all the way through adulthood, how do those add up to create our overall sense of happiness?
Yeah, that's the big question.
Right.
And I think this book, it's a great resource because it really breaks down different types of
He
relationships.
does.
We're going to be talking about family, friends, romantic relationships, and even just like our relationship with our community.
Yeah. And you know what I noticed right away? They don't just jump into like, okay, go find a boyfriend or go make friends.
Right.
They start with something that's, I think, way too often overlooked. It's this idea of the relationship we have with ourselves.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The book really stresses that that's the foundation for every other happy relationship we're ever going to have.
And it's really interesting how often we get that backwards.
Yeah.
We put the cart before the horse. We're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I want to have an amazing relationship or amazing friendships," but we don't do the work of building that strong foundation within ourselves.
Yeah, it's almost like, trying to bake a cake, but you're using like sour milk.
Yeah, the ingredients are off.
It's just not going to turn out right no matter what you do, right?
Exactly.
And the book talks about this self-relationship thing in terms of three pillars, and I think this is really helpful.
Yeah, lay 'em on us.
So it's self-esteem, self-connection, and then recognizing our own needs. I gotta say, I've heard these terms before, but I'm really curious to see how this book kind of brings them together.
Yeah, for sure. And, when we talk about self-esteem, we're not talking about ego or like bragging about how great you are.
Right, it's not arrogance.
It's not arrogance.
Right.
It's really more about, can you look at yourself honestly and be accepting of your own worth?
Hmm.
And not because somebody told you you were great, but because you genuinely get your own value,
Yeah, yeah.
regardless of what anybody else thinks.
Okay, so let's say I'm really, truly solid on that self-esteem.
Mm.
How does that actually play out in my relationships with other people?
Well, think about it this way. If, deep down, that you are worthy of respect and kindness, you're not going to put up with anything less from other people. You're going to set healthy boundaries. And that's not coming from, like an arrogant place.
Right.
It's coming from like, no, I respect myself and I deserve to be treated this way.
Right.
And you know what? When you do that, you tend to attract people who are on the same wavelength.
Yeah.
They see that in you. They respect you for that. And they value you for who you are. It's like you're setting a standard for the types of relationships that you allow into your life.
Yeah, you're not settling for crumbs.
You're not settling for crumbs when you know you deserve the whole loaf.
I like that analogy.
Mhm.
Okay, so self-esteem, knowing your worth. What about this self-connection thing?
Yeah.
I'm a little fuzzy on what that actually looks like, day to day.
It's almost like being your own best friend, in a sense.
Oh,
It's about tuning into yourself.
Hmm.
What truly brings you joy? What drains you? What are like your core values and your desires? And this isn't just some fluffy, self-help exercise.
Right.
It's important information for any relationship.
Right, because if you don't know what you want or need,
You can't communicate that to somebody else.
you can't.
You can't. It's like imagine trying to order food for a friend who's never told you what they like or dislike.
Yeah.
You're going to get it wrong.
You're just guessing.
You're just guessing. So self-connection is like knowing your own menu. So you can order what truly nourishes you in our relationship.
I love that.
Mm.
Okay, last pillar. Recognizing our needs. I can already see the internet blowing up about this one. Like, isn't that selfish?
I know. But actually, I think it's the opposite of selfish.
Mm,
It's not about demanding that everybody caters to you.
right.
It's about being self-aware enough to know, okay, what do I need to be the best version of myself? And then you can communicate that clearly and respectfully to other people.
Okay, so give me a concrete example. How does knowing my own needs actually lead to a stronger relationship, not a more selfish one?
Okay, so let's say you're somebody who, you're an introvert, you need some alone time after a long day to just kind of recharge,
Hmm. Yeah.
right? If you don't recognize that about yourself, you might end up feeling resentful toward your partner, for example.
Right.
Because they want to go out and socialize.
Uh-huh.
But you're craving some quiet time. But if you do recognize it, you can just be like, hey, I love you. I want to hang out, but I need a couple hours to unwind first. Then I'll be ready for fun.
Right. Yeah. So it's about setting yourself up for success in the relationship,
Yes.
not setting yourself apart from it.
I love that.
Ah,
Okay, so we've got this great foundation, right? We've got the self-love, we've got the self-awareness, we've got clear boundaries. What's the next step? How do all these other relationships we have actually affect our happiness?
well, here's where the research is really interesting. There are a lot of studies that show that people who have strong social ties, they actually have lower rates of anxiety and depression.
Hmm.
And it's not just about having like 500 Facebook friends.
Right.
It's about feeling truly connected to people.
So it's not about the quantity, but the quality.
Exactly. It's about feeling like you belong, like you have people you can count on, like your being here matters to someone.
That sense of connection, it creates this deep sense of security. Like you're worthy, and that actually acts as a buffer against all the stresses of life.
So does that mean then that if those connections are kind of weak or even harmful, that can really damage our well-being?
Absolutely. That's something that the book really emphasizes.
Hmm.
You can be surrounded by people and still feel incredibly lonely.
Yeah.
If those relationships are full of, conflict or negativity or neglect, think of it this way.
Okay.
Imagine you're in a room with a leaky faucet.
Oh, yeah.
Drip, drip, drip.
Mm-hmm.
That negativity, it wears you down over time.
So you're saying a good, healthy relationship is more like, I don't know, a cozy fireplace.
Exactly.
Warms you up, makes you feel safe.
It makes you feel nourished and supported. And that brings us to a really crucial aspect of healthy relationships, which is emotional support. When somebody truly has your back emotionally, it's like having this protective shield against the stress of life. They help you process those tough emotions.
It's like having a teammate, right?
It's like having a teammate in your corner.
Yeah.
Somebody to help you come up with a game plan and navigate those challenges. And the research actually shows that people who feel emotionally supported are just better equipped to handle stress.
Yeah. It's not just about feeling good. It's about being more resilient when those tough times hit.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm totally on board with how important these healthy relationships are.
Yeah.
But how do we make them healthy? It feels like communication has got to be a big piece of that puzzle.
Communication is essential, but it goes so much deeper than just talking.
Yeah.
It's about expressing your needs clearly, being a really good listener, and even paying attention to those little nonverbal cues.
Because there's so much going on beneath the surface.
All the time. And those unspoken messages, they can really make or break a relationship.
Yeah, I can see that. If you constantly feel like your partner's not hearing you or like you're misinterpreting each other, that just creates so much distrust.
It creates distance.
And the book talks about empathy and communication.
Right.
And it's not just about hearing the words, but really trying to step into the other person's shoes,
Right. It's about feeling what they're feeling.
Yeah.
And empathy, it's like this magic ingredient that can transform communication. Because suddenly it goes from just like a transaction to a real heart-to-heart connection.
Yeah.
And when you can really get where the other person's coming from, even if you don't agree with them,
Right.
it makes it so much easier to handle conflict and find that common ground we were talking about earlier.
The book calls empathy the secret sauce.
Oh, I love that.
It's like it magically helps us avoid those knee-jerk reactions.
The defensiveness.
Yeah, that can just escalate everything.
And it leads to those aha moments where you're like, oh, that's why they're reacting that way.
Yeah.
And suddenly the conflict feels less personal.
I love those moments.
Yeah.
It's like you shift from feeling attacked to feeling curious
Yes,
about their experience.
exactly. It opens up space for a real dialogue, for understanding, for finding solutions that work for both people.
Okay, so we're talking about open communication,
Yeah.
really listening, tons of empathy, and then, like you said, using I statements to express those needs.
Right.
But let's be honest, even with all the best communication skills in the world, disagreements are going to happen.
Oh, for sure.
Right?
No two people agree on everything all the time.
Right.
That's normal.
So the question is, how do we handle those conflicts in a way that actually makes the relationship stronger?
That's the art of conflict resolution.
Ooh.
And that's what we're going to dive into next.
All right, let's do it.
I'm excited for this.
Me too.
You know what's interesting is this book doesn't say that conflict resolution is just about avoiding arguments.
Hmm.
It says it's more about how you approach disagreements in a way that actually can make the relationship stronger.
Okay, that sounds kind of counterintuitive.
Hmm.
How can arguing be good for you?
Well, you know how if you never prune a plant,
Yeah.
it can grow in all these crazy directions,
Ah,
and it's not healthy, right?
right.
So think of conflict when you do it thoughtfully as kind of like pruning a relationship.
Hmm.
You're clearing out the dead weight so that it can grow in a healthy way.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
So how do we prune effectively? What are the tools?
Well, the book says active listening is so important,
Yeah.
and maybe even more important when you're having a disagreement.
Hmm.
It's easy to get caught up in, what you're gonna say next,
Oh, yeah.
planning your rebuttal while the other person's talking.
Right.
But if you can really hear them
Yeah.
and try to understand where they're coming from, that's like the first step.
I can see how that would de-escalate things.
Right.
When you feel heard,
Right.
you're less likely to, start yelling.
Exactly. It creates that space for empathy and understanding.
Right.
And that's where those I statements that we talked about earlier can be super helpful.
Yeah.
Remember, you're not trying to win an argument here.
Right.
You're trying to find a solution that works for both people.
Right.
So instead of saying, like, you always leave your clothes on the floor,
Hmm.
you could say, hey, I feel frustrated when the room is messy because it makes it hard for me to relax.
Yeah, it's focusing on your experience of it,
Yes.
not attacking them.
Not attacking their character.
I bet that changes the tone of the conversation really quickly.
It does. It really helps. Another important skill the book talks about is staying calm.
Yeah, good luck with that one.
I know, right?
Easier said than done.
But being aware of your emotions when you're in the middle of a fight.
Right.
Because it's so easy to just get reactive.
Oh, yeah.
Your anger takes over and you say things you don't mean.
Oh, I've been there. It's like my emotions hijack my brain, and I'm just like on autopilot.
Right. But the more aware you are
Yeah.
of those emotions bubbling up, the more you can actually choose how you respond.
Right. Yeah.
You can take a breath, you can pause, and you can choose your words in a way that doesn't make things worse.
Like hitting the pause button on a video game.
Yes.
Before you rage quit. Right.
Totally.
Give yourself a minute to cool down and think about what you're going to say.
Exactly. Okay, so active listening. Statements, staying calm. There's one more thing that I think is really powerful.
Okay.
The book talks a lot about forgiveness.
Forgiveness. It's
Yeah.
one of those things that sounds great in theory, but it's like so hard to do sometimes.
It is hard, but the way this book explains it, it kind of shifted things for me. Because they say forgiveness isn't about saying that what that person did was okay.
Right. Yeah.
It's about recognizing that holding on to all that anger and resentment, it actually hurts you more than it hurts anyone else.
So it's not about letting them off the hook. It's
Yeah.
about letting go of that emotional baggage for yourself.
Exactly. Imagine you're carrying around this heavy backpack everywhere you go.
Uh-huh.
That's what unforgiveness is like. It weighs you down, makes you feel tense, irritable. Forgiveness is like taking off that backpack.
Oh, I like that. Helps me understand why it's so important, even when it feels hard.
Yeah. And I think the book's section on dispute resolution kind of ties in with this idea of forgiveness.
Mm.
It's about aiming for a win-win solution, not just trying to prove that you're right.
Right. Yeah.
So that's where flexibility comes in.
Okay.
Compromise. It's about recognizing that, there might be more than one right way to approach a problem.
Mm.
And the goal is to find a solution that meets everyone's needs,
Right.
even if it takes a little bit of give and take.
It's like shifting from a battle mindset to a teamwork mindset.
Exactly.
You're not trying to defeat the other person.
Yeah.
You're working together to overcome a challenge.
Exactly. And that collaborative approach, it fosters understanding, strengthens the bond between you. Speaking of bonds, let's shift gears a bit
Okay.
and talk about a type of relationship that can be, really fulfilling, but also really complex. Family.
Oh, yeah. Family.
Yeah.
The people who know you best, for better or for worse. And it seems like this book really emphasizes how those family relationships, both the good and the bad, can have a huge impact on how happy we are overall.
Yeah, it's amazing how influential those early childhood experiences with our parents can be.
Hmm.
It's like those early years are when you're laying the foundation for a house.
Yeah.
They shape who you are, how you handle your emotions,
Yeah.
even your ability to have healthy relationships when you're an adult. So if a kid grows up in a stable, loving environment,
Oh.
they feel secure, they develop good communication skills,
Right?
they even learn how to manage their stress better.
So it's like they're absorbing all that just by watching their parents.
Exactly. They're learning by example.
Yeah.
It's like those early experiences, they become our blueprint for what a relationship should look like. And if you have parents who are emotionally intelligent,
Wow.
if they demonstrate healthy communication, if they show you how to resolve conflicts, you're more likely to do the same thing when you grow up.
It makes you realize how important it is to be a good role model for your kids.
Oh, it's a huge responsibility. And the flip side is true too, of course. If you have a family where there's a lot of conflict
Hmm.
or neglect or even abuse, those patterns can leave lasting scars.
Because that's all they know. That becomes their normal.
And unfortunately, yeah. And then they might go into other relationships expecting that same pattern. It's really sad.
It is. It makes you realize how important it is to break those negative cycles.
Yeah, to create a better, healthier dynamic within the family.
All right, let's talk about siblings. The book calls them our first friends,
Ah, yes.
which I love. I have such great memories of playing with my siblings when we were kids.
Sibling relationships are so powerful. You've got that shared history. You've got unconditional love.
Right.
And let's be honest, sometimes you've got like intense rivalry.
Oh, yeah, definitely. My sister and I, we had some knockdown, drag-out fights over toys, clothes.
Yeah.
But even when we were fighting, we were learning how to, like, negotiate.
Right.
How to compromise, how to eventually forgive each other.
And that's what I think is so cool about what this book says. Even those difficult parts of sibling relationships
Yeah.
can be valuable lessons.
Hmm.
Those early squabbles, they teach us how to resolve conflicts, how to stand up for ourselves, how to see things from another perspective.
I never thought about it that way, but it
Yeah.
makes sense. Like, those childhood arguments were actually practice for building healthy relationships when we're older.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so we've talked about parents, siblings. The book also mentions the importance of your extended family.
Right.
Like grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, all those people who contribute to your sense of belonging.
It's like having a whole cheering section.
Exactly. And they can be especially important during like tough times.
Right.
Or when your immediate family is going through some changes. Grandparents especially, they often have this unique perspective, this wisdom that they can share. They provide stability, love, and guidance.
Yeah, it can make a huge difference for kids, especially if things are difficult at home.
Absolutely. All right, so we've explored family, all its complexities.
Yeah.
Let's move on to another kind of relationship that's so important for our well-being, friendship.
Yes. Friendship. The family we choose for ourselves.
Exactly.
And I love that the book actually calls friends our chosen family because it emphasizes how deep those connections can be.
And the research is super clear on this. Having close friendships boosts our mental health. It reduces stress, and it increases our sense of belonging. Like we have a purpose in the world.
I think what's so special about friendship is that, you're not bound by blood.
Right.
You're connected by choice.
Yeah.
Shared interests, respect, genuine affection.
And like any relationship, it's a two-way street.
Right.
You give support, you receive support, you're there for each other through thick and thin, you celebrate each other's wins.
Yeah, it's about feeling truly seen by somebody outside of your family.
Absolutely. And building those deep, lasting friendships, it does take work.
It does.
It takes honesty, vulnerability, a willingness to show up for each other, even when it's not convenient.
It's about making time for each other, really listening,
Yes.
offering support without judgment.
It's so true. Okay, so we've talked about the power of friendship.
Yeah.
Let's talk about romantic relationships.
Ooh, yes.
Oh, romantic love.
It's such a powerful force.
It is. It has the potential for so much joy,
Right.
but it can also be really challenging.
I think a lot of people struggle to find that balance,
Yeah.
between passion and stability in a romantic relationship. What does this book say about that?
Well, one thing it emphasizes is the importance of choosing a partner who shares your values, someone who respects your needs and supports you.
So it's about finding someone who compliments you but also challenges you, right?
Exactly. Somebody who inspires you to be the best version of yourself.
It sounds like those are the ingredients for a love that can last.
They are. And remember, romantic relationships, just like all the other ones we've talked about,
Yeah.
they take effort.
They do.
You got to nurture them, make time for each other, express appreciation, and work together to face the challenges.
I like that.
Now, we've talked about a lot of different relationships, from the really personal ones to broader social connections.
Yeah.
I want to zoom out even further
Okay.
and think about the impact of community.
Yeah, it's easy to forget when we're focused on our own lives
Yeah.
that we're all part of something much bigger.
Right. And this book talks about the importance of finding your tribe.
Your tribe.
Yeah, the people who share your values, your interests, who make you feel like you belong.
So again, it's not just about the number of people you know.
Right.
It's about finding that sense of connection, of purpose within a larger group.
Exactly. Whether you join a club, volunteer for a cause you care about, or even just get to know your neighbors. Those ties to your community, they give you a sense of meaning and belonging.
It makes you feel like you're part of something bigger than yourself.
Absolutely. And even just those little everyday interactions with people in your community.
Right, right.
The barista who makes your coffee.
Yeah.
The cashier at the grocery store. The person you see on your morning walk.
Yeah, it's like all those little moments of human connection add up.
They do.
And they create a more supportive, vibrant community.
It's pretty inspiring to think that we can all contribute to a happier world.
Yeah.
Just by being kind, present in those little moments.
Yeah, it brings us to a good point of reflection here. Wow, we've really gone deep on this, haven't we?
We have.
From self-love all the way to, how being kind to the barista can make a difference.
It's amazing how it all connects, right?
It is. It shows you that our happiness isn't just about what we do.
That's about who we're connected to.
Exactly. It's the quality of those connections with everyone around us.
Yeah, it's not just about individual success.
And the best part is we can actually do something about it.
That's right.
We can make those connections stronger.
We can choose to put in the effort.
Exactly. To communicate better, to forgive, to just be more present for people.
It's a constant process, of course. Relationships, they're like plants. They need attention.
But when they bloom,
The rewards are incredible.
they are, you feel like you belong, you can handle tough times better, just makes life richer.
More joyful.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
I'm curious, what's one thing our listeners could do today to be a little bit happier?
That's a good question.
What's one little change you could make in a relationship? Maybe sending a nice text to a friend, or telling someone you appreciate them.
Or just being more mindful when you're talking to people.
Exactly. Because even those small acts of kindness, they can make a big difference. Well, thanks for exploring all of this with us. It's been fascinating. And I hope you've all learned some useful stuff to try out in your own lives. Until next time, happy connecting.